This is the Long Island Railroad, the busiest commuter rail system in North America. But what this amazing system falls short on is its ability to serve inner island trips. While it can get you from Long Island to Manhattan, it can't get you from the northern tip of the island to the southern tip. Furthermore, because of the island's sprawling nature, most riders have to drive rather than walk or bike to make the last mile connection. So despite an extensive rail system, Long Island remains car dependent, with the vast majority of residents owning and getting around by car. But it doesn't have to be this way, and Long Island deserves better. So in today's video, we'll take a look at how transit on Long Island can be improved, and the opportunity it brings to create denser, walkable neighborhoods across the island. Without further ado, let's begin. Before we build any billion-dollar mega project, let's first focus on what we can get out of what we already have. I will start with an integration and overhaul of the NASA and Suffolk County buses into a unified Long Island bus network. I know Suffolk County redesigned its bus system a few years ago, and frequencies have been improved. But I believe headways can be even better, especially when we plan to add more housing and density across the island. This might be costly, but it is still much cheaper than any new infrastructure project, and should be able to do the job of filling in the last mile gaps and serving inner island trips before new infrastructure takes over. Next, I will implement a regional rail style operation on the LIRR, starting with a pilot on the Port Washington branch, and then gradually expanding to other branches and eventually the entire system, with potential through running into New Jersey. Since this video is about improving Long Island transit, I will leave out the details about regional rail, but multiple studies indicate that through running will allow increased capacity throughput on the LIRR. With an overhauled bus system, commuters who drove to the station or are making inner island trips can now hop on a bus. Along with increased capacity on the LIRR, we have the basis for the first round of density. Mixed-use developments can be added around stations like Elmont, Freeport, and Deer Park, and major bus hubs like Smith Haven Mall, South Shore Mall, Roosevelt Field, and Roosevelt Raceway Center. As you can see, without spending a dime on any big mega project, Long Island's transit system is still massively improved. However, there is only so much you can do with the existing network. As the dense developments start coming up and more new residents move in, the only choice we have is to build new infrastructure, which will be much easier to justify given the new growth. Multiple pieces of open land sit between LIRR stations. These are all great opportunities for adding housing, but right now, trains fly by. So to utilize these open lots, I propose infill stations to be added at Newcastle, Jericho Turnpike, Nose Pond, Setauket, East Farmingdale, South Farmingdale, etc. Then I would double track and or electrify the Oyster Bay branch, West Hempstead branch, the Ronkonkoma branch up to Riverhead, the Montauk branch up to Patchogue, and the remaining sections of the Long Beach, Hempstead, Port Washington, and Port Jefferson branches. Finally, I propose revisions to the officially proposed NASA Hub, Route 110, and Nichols Road BRT to enhance north-south inner island trips. The NASA Hub BRT will get an alternate route via Roosevelt Field, with potential future extensions north to South Huntington, connecting with the Route 110 corridor, and south to Lynbrook. The Route 110 BRT will be extended to East Massapequa, and the Nichols Road BRT will be extended to Port Jefferson LIRR station. All three BRT corridors will be built with provisions to be upgraded into a light rail line. These new infrastructures will open up opportunities for more density towards the middle and eastern end of the island, with the Roosevelt Field and Roosevelt Raceway area and the Route 110 corridor potentially becoming some of the largest mixed-use development complexes on Long Island. By this point, Nassau County and the western part of Suffolk County should have some decent density, which should justify a round of heavier transit expansions. First, I will propose repurposing multiple abandoned rail corridors across the island. The West Hempstead branch between West Hempstead and Mineola, the Central branch between Garden City and Farmingdale, and the Wading River branch between Port Jefferson and Wading River will be restored as LIRR lines, all with double tracks and electrification. The Wading River branch could potentially be extended further east to Riverhead. Finally, I propose multiple BRT corridors that will serve major north-south, east-west, and diagonal roadways across Long Island. Up to this point, I have left New York City subway expansions to Long Island off the table and focused on improving the LIRR and buses first. At the end of the day, this is the New York City subway. While I am fine with it extended outside the city limits, it is meant for urban trips, not regional ones. Also, there are so many subway extensions within the city limits that should get priority. But maybe a decade or two from now, when population and development on the island grow to a certain point, subway extensions into Long Island could be justified and seriously considered. Though any subway extension shouldn't go beyond the western part of Nassau County in my opinion, it just doesn't make sense to have the subway do the job of the LIRR. Subway extensions I will consider include extending the J train to Hampstead, F train to East Wilston, E train to Green Acres Mall, Union Turnpike line to Marylawn Avenue, and 7 train extension to Lake Success. Again, these are my last resorts. We should have built phase 0 to 2 before thinking about extending the subway. With these 4 phases, Long Island's transit will be going from this to this. LIRR service will be more frequent. The expansion of buses and light rail will allow more Long Islanders to live close to viable transit options, as well as improving inner island and last mile trips. More and denser housing will be built across the island, making these transit improvements and potential subway expansions justifiable. And by using tools like tax increment financing, we could capture the value increase of these new housing developments and use it to pay off the cost of all these transit expansions. My biggest concern though is NIMBYs, who will be arms up about any transit expansion of new housing development. What makes it worse is Nassau and Suffolk counties are some of the most NIMBYest places in the country. But as the region faces the housing crisis and a younger generation arises, there has been more receptiveness to new developments. And we don't need to aim for high-rises and towers. Gentle upzoning can go a long way in solving the housing crisis. What do you think about my plans to improve Long Island transit? Share your thoughts with me in the comments below. If you want to see these transit expansions happen, London's story of funding the Elizabeth line is a lesson to learn from. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in that video.